So we haven't really done a let's terrify everyone with what has fallen off Boeing planes in flight in the last week. And we have our little customary musical intro. I'm leaving on a jet plane. Well, not on a Boeing. So you had two incidents last week involving Boeing planes. The first one was on June 20th. A Malaysian Airlines flight flying from Hyderabad. Is that how you say that? Hyderabad?
I think so.
To Kuala Lumpur?
Yeah. Kuala
Lumpur. The engine caught on fire, and I can only imagine what that is like to look out the window and see an engine on fire. But somebody caught the moment on video.
हाइट पे बहुत हाइट पे
So this was a 737-800, not a Max. Not a Max, but a Boeing. All right, so you have that. So, hey, Boeing, one thing you can give them is one incident per week is never enough. They always go the extra mile. So just a few days later on the 24th, this was a Max, a 737 MAX 8, lost pressure in flight and had to descend 25,000 feet within 5 minutes, precipitating the deployment of the oxygen mask. This is the plane that descended. It was bound for Taiwan. Flight data shows 25,000 feet in 5 minutes. 17 passengers needed medical care afterwards. Let's go back to that. I can't tell if that's the landing gear or someone screaming upon landing. Okay, so what better company to entrust your space program to than Boeing, of course. NASA astronauts' return on Boeing's spaceship has been delayed repeatedly. How you could send your astronauts up on a Boeing, I don't know. But they did, and they are coming to regret it. The two NASA astronauts who flew Boeing's Starliner capsule to the International Space Station earlier this month have stayed in orbit much longer than anticipated and will continue to do so, and Boeing say. The original plan for this first crewed test flight of the Starliner called for veteran astronauts Butch Wilmore and Sunita Williams to spend about a week on the space station before riding the capsule back to Earth. They arrived at the orbiting outpost June 6th, but their return journey has been postponed several times. NASA initially floated June 18th as the earliest date the astronauts could return, after which the agency said the flight back would happen on June 22nd. Then that was changed to June 26th, and the latest delay announced Friday pushed the planned landing back to an as-yet undetermined new date. Yeah, look, we'll bring you back when we bring you back, all right? You got food up there. You got to shut up. You relax. Come on. You know how much people pay to go up there? You're lucky. You get to stay up there longer. You're lucky we're not charging you.
The world's a dangerous place right now. You're better off up there.
You're better off up there. Any day now, this place could be a fucking cinder.
Yeah.
The reason for the adjustments, NASA has said, is an investigation into issues with the capsule that cropped up earlier in the flight. The spacecraft's propulsion system has a slow helium leak, something mission managers knew about prior to launch. At the time, they said it was unlikely to affect the test flight or the safety of the astronauts, but 4 additional helium leaks were detected once the spacecraft reached orbit. That sounds like a Boeing, all right. As the Starliner craft neared the space station on June 6th, 5 of its thrusters also malfunctioned, delaying the final approach by just over an hour. Officials at NASA and Boeing said they are continuing to monitor these issues as they plan for the capsule's return. Quote, "We are taking our time and following our standard mission management team process," Steve Stitch, manager of NASA's Commercial Crew Program, said in a statement. Quote, "We are letting the data drive our decision-making relative to managing the small helium system leaks and thruster performance we observed during rendezvous and docking. Nothing to worry about." The Starliner's test flight to the International Space Station is meant to demonstrate that the vehicle can safely ferry astronauts to and from low Earth orbit and to assess its various systems in space. The capsule's launch, too, faced multiple delays before it finally lifted off on June 5th, years behind schedule and way over its initial budget. NASA officials suggested in a blog post that although no date for the astronauts' return is set yet, it could come after a planned spacewalk at the International Space Station on July 2nd. There are enough supplies to accommodate the visitors, and there is no need to hurry the departure, the official said. Stitch said NASA will conduct a full review before the go-ahead is given for the capsule's undocking. Wilmore and Williams are currently living on the ISS with 7 crew members who were already stationed there. And just interesting to note, in spite of the fact that we're on the verge of World War III, the cooperation with the Russian space program seems to continue. There are 3 Russian cosmonauts up there. During their extended stay in space, Wilmore and Williams are helping out with tasks at the space station and carrying out other tests as part of NASA's process to certify the Starliner for future missions. Now, this part is really funny. Quote, "The crew's feedback has been overwhelmingly positive, and they know that every bit of learning we do on the crew flight test will improve and sharpen our experience for future crews," Mark Nappy, Vice President and Program Manager of Boeing's Starliner program, said in a statement. Boeing hopes to eventually conduct routine flights to and from the space station for NASA, similar to the commercial service that SpaceX has been providing the agency since 2020 with its Crew Dragon capsule. What are these astronauts going to say? They're stuck in space and completely dependent on Boeing to get them back. Yeah, no, Boeing's great. Please get us home. Please, God, for the love of God, get us home before the 4th of July. Yeah, can you imagine being those astronauts? I'd be shitting my pants. I'd be shitting my spacesuit.
And it's a good question. Like, what are you in a position to say? Talk about a situation where, you don't really hold the cards, especially given Boeing's very questionable, shall we say, record of retaliation against people who talk shit about them. That's if you talk shit about them on Earth. When you're stranded in space. But no, it's been it's been overwhelmingly positive. Yeah, if you ask people, now astronauts, obviously, the caveat here is they would not give you this answer. But, being lost in space is like pretty reliably like on everyone's top 5 list of deepest fears, stranded in the ocean or lost in space, something like that. It's a very common like nightmare vision that you're stranded in space. And here these people are actually stranded in space in a Boeing. And they're very confident about the future of Boeing. Quite the spin there.
Well, and this is an example. And hey, for the Elon stands, I said this last night on the Patron show with our resident Elon stands, Jules Vega. I'll give him this, man. SpaceX doesn't seem to be having these problems. God knows the press hates Elon. You'd be hearing about it if they were. That seems to be going well, but it seems like the issue is just as with Boeing and Airbus. You say, how could there only be two manufacturers of planes, and both of them are partially dependent on the same main supplier for a lot of key parts? Hey, that's a very specialized area of manufacturing that, needless to say, requires an enormous amount of capital, an enormous amount of organization and management capacity and access to engineers and mechanics and fabricators and so on. There just aren't a lot of companies on the planet that can build something like that. Right. So they're already, you can't say switch to SpaceX. They're already using SpaceX, which is probably already operating at the limits of its manufacturing capacity. So what are they going to do? If they want to increase their flights, they're going to have to deal with somebody else. And in America, that's generally going to mean Boeing, which this is why I keep saying, I don't think it's out of the question that they do a government takeover of Boeing. Like if a Boeing, God forbid, falls out of the sky, I think that's going to be on the table, because the government is so dependent on Boeing not collapsing for particularly its military needs. Like they can't let Boeing go down. If it's to a point that it just seems like the incentives of capitalism have so eroded and destroyed the ability of Boeing to safely manufacture airplanes, what else are they going to do?
Yeah, no, I think you're right. I think that is definitely a strong possibility.
Please clap.